Good afternoon and welcome to the Public Works meeting for February 7th. We have Cheryl Vincent very ably keeping the record straight. We have Director Chad Barron with us, Council Member Seth Winder-Core to my right, and we have joining us virtually Council Member Marley Larimer. Oh, she is not here right now, so she may be joining us. I'm Brenda Fincher, Chair of the committee. And with that, are there any changes to the agenda?
No changes.
No changes, then we are ready for a motion.
Chair, I move to make a motion to approve agenda as presented.
The motion has been made to approve the agenda as mentioned. All in favor? Aye. Motion carries. May I have a motion on the minutes?
Chair, I make a motion to approve minutes for January 3rd, 2022.
Second. It has been moved and seconded to approve the minutes for January 3rd. And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. So we are on to the business of the meeting, starting off with Storm Surface Water Utility Ordinance. We have Evan Swanson presenting.
Good afternoon, council members, director, good to see you. My name is Evan Swanson. I'm an environmental conservation coordinator in the Environmental Engineering Division of the Public Works Department. And I'm here today to present our Storm and Surface Water Code updates, specifically Kent City Code chapters 7.07 and 7.05. I'd like to start with explaining the reason that we decided to update the code. Essentially, it's been a long time since the code was previously updated, and it was time for several updates to be made to be more consistent with current industry standards and regulatory requirements. This update includes updated definitions to be more consistent with current stormwater technology, regulations, and terminology. It clarifies owner responsibility to inspect and maintain stormwater systems. It clarifies that best management practices may be necessary to prevent pollution per state requirements, and it updates enforcement provisions to be consistent with other city code sections. This also includes fully repealing Kent City Code 7.07 as it was redundant to adopted city standards. It is important to note that there are no substantive changes to the rate structure. Kent City Code Chapter 7.07 contains stormwater standards which are now outdated. Kent now requires the use of the Kent Surface Water Design Manual and the Kent Design and Construction Standards, both shown on this slide here. Because we now have adopted these manuals, Code Section 7.07 was no longer necessary. We updated terms and definitions to be consistent with current stormwater technology and regulations. One of the reasons we're required to update our stormwater code is because of mandates in the National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System permit. Primarily, we're required to implement a source control inspection program to prevent the discharge of pollutants in Kent. A specific requirement from the state is that the city must require implementation of stormwater best management practices at facilities having ongoing pollution issues. These stormwater BMPs can range from simple activities like covering waste containers and educating employees to more complex solutions such as installing a physical BMP to prevent pollution. An example of a physical BMP might be a catch basin insert to collect sediment, or something like installing a asphalt berm as secondary containment to prevent waste from getting into the storm drains. The photo in this slide depicts a facility in Kent where pollution prevention was not working, and the code update will support staff as we work with the property owners of these facilities to use BMPs prior to entering Kent's stormwater system. These code updates will clarify the responsibilities for inspecting, operating, and maintaining public and private storm systems. Kent will work with storm system owners to assist with education of these requirements. It's important to note that we worked with our legal team to update the code enforcement section. This includes referencing Kent City Code Chapter 1.04, which includes a flexible and progressive enforcement process. It also provides consistency with other city code chapters. Of note, we always prefer to focus on education first when working with property owners. We want to work with businesses and help them address potential pollution sources. However, a sound code enforcement strategy is important in the event that those cooperative efforts fail. Lastly, it's important to note that these updates have undergone a thorough review process, including Kent's legal department, SEPA review and public comment, Department of Commerce review, and Land Use and Planning Board. And that's all I have for you this afternoon. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Any questions, Councilmember Corr? Or comments?
No questions, but I think we're doing some of the work already, right?
Yes,
The
we are
education work with the
implementing our
business.
stormwater program now and working with businesses currently.
All right, thank you. No other questions.
So if there's a restaurant out there, if there's a business out there who is a burger place that has a lot of grease that they have used, they're not supposed to be simply pouring that down the drain. There's a process, and your department is happy to go out and educate them on the proper storage and disposal of that instead of pouring it down the drain. Or I know that something else you guys do that surprised me was the kits for car washes. So there's a church getting ready to do a fundraiser. They're going to be having a big car wash. They're going to invite all the cars in, all the soap and all. That, too, does not simply go down the drain. You guys have a kit that is free for the users, and that helps protect our environment, our water and all also. So all they need to do is to contact you at what number is a good number to call?
Our Public Works line is 253-856-5500. 5500. Yes. Yes, that is correct. And we'll provide them with all the information they need regarding car washes, stormwater prevention, stormwater pollution prevention, all of those things. You stated that better than I could have as far as the services we offer and what the intent of the stormwater code update is. So, yes, thank you for that explanation.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm just going to add one last thing, that it doesn't have to be a big business. It could be a large church, a small church, any size organization. You know, something as simple as painting your house, and you're thinking of how am I going to dispose of this paint water. If you have a question about it, give them a call. Because, again, there's a saying that they use around here, only rain down the drain. Try to keep that true. So thank you very much, Evan.
Thank you.
Let's see. So may I have a motion, Councilmember Corr?
Chair, I move to recommend council adopt an ordinance repealing and replacing Chapter 7.05 of the Kent City Code entitled Storm and Surface Water Utility and repealing 7.07.
Second. All in favor? Aye. Motion carries. So those portions of the code have been changed, and that will be moved on, or will be changed once that moves on to council. Thank you very much. Next, we have Cheryl Wilcox coming up to talk to us about Mill Creek at 76th Avenue flood protection improvements.
And it worked. Hello, I'm Cheryl Rolsick Wilcox, and I'm the city's property and acquisition analyst for the Public Works Department. And I'm here to talk to you about the Mill Creek at 76th Avenue flood improvements project. As you're likely aware, we're getting ready to start construction on that in the near future, and not the very near future, but in the future. And this project will improve Mill Creek's conveyance capacity to reduce flood risk through the 76th Avenue corridor. The project requires that the city acquire from MyRef Mill Creek, LLC, a drainage easement, a utility easement, and a temporary construction easement on their property located at 22114 76th Avenue South. We've already obtained several easements from neighboring properties in anticipation of this project, including from Earl M. Jorgensen Company, HRP Properties, and the Kent Pear condos, which are on the other side of the street on the west side of 76th Avenue. After fairly lengthy discussions with MyRef, they've signed a settlement agreement accepting the negotiated amount of $155,050. And to break that down a little bit for you, it's $27,800 for a 2,276 square foot drainage easement, $27,500 for a 2,745 square foot utility easement, $40,100 for a 27,807 square foot temporary construction easement that'll be for a 6-month period. Also included in this settlement agreement is $59,650 in compensation for damages to the property. I'm here to ask the committee to pass along to council to authorize the mayor to sign the settlement agreement and the referenced easement documents, which if you'd like to take a look up here, you can see where they're located on the property. Are there any questions?
No questions? Thank you very much.
Great, thank you.
Okay, in that case.
Chair, I move to authorize the mayor to sign a settlement agreement along with all documents necessary for the acquisition of a drainage easement, utility easement, and a temporary construction easement on the portions of property owned by MyRef Mill Creek LLC, located at 22114 76th Avenue South, APN 775-980-0150, for an amount not to exceed $155,050, subject to final terms and conditions acceptable to the city attorney and public works director.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And it has been moved, seconded, and it is passed. We will be passing this on to the mayor for those 3 easements, and it will include the amount there for the property.
Wonderful, thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have. Thank you. Next, we have Jens Vincent up to tell us about the Frager Road Pump Station Supply Agreement.
Well, this is unusual for me. I'm normally up here to talk about stormwater, but today I'll talk about my other favorite subject, and that's sewer. More specifically, of the Frager Road Pump Station Grinder Pump Installation Project. I'm going to start out with the what first, and then I'm going to get into the why at the end here. We've discovered over the years that at Skyline, Skyline Park Apartments up off of Military Road, we've got a pump station there that is consistently blocking up with flushable wipes, or flushable wipes, and that's caused a lot of overtime, a lot of time spent away from families, and wear and tear on our equipment. So what's happening now is that we have installed a manhole so we can successfully run a gravity line from that pump station to the manhole, and then eventually it's going to end up clear up to the other end there where that arrow is at the Frager Road Pump Station. I wish it were that simple where we could just draw a straight line and make it happen like that. It'd be a lot easier, but it's not. So anyhow, we'll be deleting that pump station and essentially getting rid of those ragging issues, and I'll get to the definition of ragging here. We're going to be installing this grinder pump or something similar to this grinder pump down at our Frager Road station. What this does is chews up the solids that come through. Okay, it's going to essentially stop the ragging that comes through the flushable wipes, sometimes mop heads, anything people that think they can flush down in the sewer will make it through here and get chewed up. So what I'm here asking today is permission to move forward with awarding JWC Environmental as the apparent lowest bidder here. Award them the contract of $103,494. We'll be purchasing just this pump and the components from them. When I say the pump only in the presentation, what I mean by that is my personnel will be doing the installation of the pump. So the pump's going to come with all the framing and the electrical components needed for them to install it successfully. All right, let's get into the why. Okay, this is the why we're doing it. This is ragging. All right, this is what happens when the flushable wipes and other things get caught up in the pumps. That impeller there is completely packed and it won't pump. Okay, the sewage stops basically right there. It'll spin, but it's not going to do anything. It's not going to convey it. It's not going to get rid of it. Fantastic pictures. Not only do they get caught up in the impellers of our pumps, but they also get caught up in the valves of our pumps. This is at another pump station where we don't have the common ragging problem, but it was a fantastic illustration of what takes place and what happens. Results of the ragging. This is another part of the why here. In 2021, the sewer team responded to over 83 ragging calls and 57 debris calls. Those debris calls were also ragging. It's how they put together their time at the end of the day. It's how they did their time sheets. Anyhow, this is at our Skyline pump stations. This is what they see on a quite frequent basis. What's fantastic about what's happening here? All right, I got to the why. You guys saw the juicy pictures. Is Washington State, or you can see there, on March 25th, 2020, Washington State became the first state with a wipes labeling law. And I've attached the link to that on the electronic version of this presentation. That explains what's in that what's in the law as far as labeling is concerned. And we've got a wonderful picture of wipes clogged pipes. You know, it's not only rain down the drain, but wipes clogged pipes. That's another one of our campaigns in order to slow down or stop the usage of flushable wipes. That's all I have for you today.
Councilmember.
I guess the campaign, have we started that campaign and how successful it is? Because I think there's a lot of...
It all depends. You know, we have moments where, you know, there's a lull in the plugging and they're not being used as much. We really started heavy with wipes clogged pipes at the beginning of COVID, you know, when toilet paper disappeared. You know, I was disappearing off the shelves, but baby wipes were there and other wipe type products were there. And that's when we really started experiencing a lot of calls, after hour calls, during the work calls, quite a bit of that. So we've been pushing this for a couple years now.
And are we running this campaign in other languages, possibly?
I don't have that answer for you, but I can get that answer for you, truthfully.
Yep.
So this is right up, that picture there, wipes clogged pipes, is on our new City of Kent website. It's in the sewer page, big and bold. But as far as presented in other languages, I don't have that answer for you right now.
I think it'd be a great idea to have this campaign in multiple languages.
Fantastic. Yes, I agree.
Thank you.
I think multiple languages, and not only on the sewer page, but also moved up to the main page. You know, you have the slides there. I think that would be a good idea, something to look at. Hello, council member Larimer, do you have any comments?
I don't. I apologize for joining late. Had some connectivity issues. No, I just would like to know who in their wisdom way back when decided to even call them flushable wipes, given what we see here. Sounds like a bad marketing campaign somewhere. So no questions. Thank you.
You know, it was at one of our Public Works Day events, which you guys know is one of my favorite events that we do, that I learned that no wipes are flushable.
Right.
So basically, if it doesn't come from your body and it's not the toilet paper, then it doesn't go in the drain, not paper towels, because they just don't break down as well. So if it tells you it's flushable, it's not really, you can flush it, it'll go down, but would you go back to one of those screens, please, to show what's going to end up happening?
I'd be happy to take you right back there.
It's going to end up clogging up the sewer systems. Look.
Crazy.
So.
Where did I go? I apologize.
Anyway, you saw the graphic that is alive in my brain. I can see it. So that it ends up clogging clogging the system, causing a lot of hours of work that people really could be working on something else that needs to be. The residents don't need to be, and again, these are all wipes that we're looking at. The residents don't need to be, having anything back up in their pipes or homes. And it's just as easy as not putting them down the toilet, not flushing them. So again, those regulations are on the website if you want to see those. And Councilmember Kaur, would you like to make this, Councilmember Larimer, would you like to make this motion?
Yeah, so I move to recommend the council adopt an ordinance repealing and replace, am I on the right one? I just want to make sure. Replacing Chapter 7.5 of the Kent City Code entitled Storm and Surface Water.
Actually,
Sorry,
we are on 5C.
page 69.
Sorry,
Sorry.
you guys. Zoom is not my friend today.
I've had those days. Unfortunately,
69.
more often than I would like to have. Frager Sewer Pump Station Supply Agreement.
I'm sorry, the packet number is 69. Okay.
Packet 69.
69.
I moved to authorize the mayor to sign the contract with JWC Environmental Inc. in the amount of $103,494 for the Frager Sewer Pump Station project, subject to final terms and additions acceptable to the Public Works Director and City Attorney.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
And I'm sorry, did I hear you, or do I, Councilmember Larimer?
Aye, sorry.
Okay, that's okay. I just didn't hear it. I wanted to know if I had to go for the other vote also. So it has been moved. It is passed unanimously to move on to council to authorize the mayor to sign the contract with JWC Environment for $103,494 for the Frager Sewer Pump Project. And those funds will come from already budgeted amount. Next, we are on to, is it Abdulnaser? Abdulnaser Almaroof for the South 2012th Street Preservation Interlocal Agreement authorization. And while you're there, you're also going to tell us about the 224th Street Project Phase 3 PSC schedule.
Yes. So good afternoon. This is Abdulnaser Almaroof, Design Engineer, Public Works Engineering Department. My first item is to authorize a reimbursement agreement with King County for the South 212 Preservation Project. As you see on the screen, the project limit is between Green River Bridge and the city limit on Oralia Road. This project will include full width grinding and asphalt overlay, some pavement repairs, channelization, and upgrade the ADA curb ramps. The second slide is showing a portion of the project, which is the west end, where we have a shared right-of-way between King County and the city of Kent. The shaded area, the green color, is the King County right-of-way. This portion of this area will be included in our project, and we work with King County to prepare a reimbursement agreement to reimburse the city for all actual costs to design and overlay this portion of the project. So this is what I have in my item to authorize this agreement for this project, and we'll be happy to answer any question.
Any questions? Councilmember Kaur?
Yeah, just this is for reimbursement, but do we kind of have an idea how much it's going to cost?
For the construction, we have estimates around 200, but in the agreement, we didn't mention the amount of money. We'll mention the actual cost, including design, construction, and construction management. And that will be during construction to figure out the final estimate. But for now, we only have estimate for construction to build the project.
Thank you.
Yes, Director Barron.
So the part, just really clear for the audience, the part in purple from the Green River Bridge over to the city limits, we have federal funding for that. It was one of our grant-funded projects from last year. And then, as Abdulnaser pointed out, and we just have that strange interface between unincorporated King County and the city where the road is split in half. So Abdulnaser worked with the county just to get that reimbursement agreement. So the motoring public will just see a nice, smooth road up to a logical ending point, as opposed to driving along and wondering, why is that half of the street not paved and in terrible shape, and this half of the street looks perfect. So it's a great agreement for both of us to be able to work this out together.
Thank you for that explanation. Councilmember Larimer?
No questions here.
Okay, then. Our driving public will be much appreciated once this one is completed. I am ready for a motion.
Chair, I move to authorize the mayor to sign a reimbursement agreement with King County for design and construction of the South 212th Street Green River Bridge to Aurelia Road, city limits, pavement preservation project within King County's right-of-way, subject to final terms and conditions acceptable to the city attorney and public works director.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to move this on for the reimbursement agreement with King County for the design and construction on South 212th Street, the Green River Bridge to Aurelia Road, city limits pavement preservation project. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes, and this will be moved on to be for approval by the full council.
Thank you.
And part two.
Well, my second item is information-only item about the Schedule 74 underground conversion agreement with the Puget Sound Energy for the South to 24th Street Phase 3 project. On the screen, you can see the project limits between 94th Place South and 99th Avenue South. This project will include widening the existing roadway section by to 3 lanes, adding shoulders, adding curb and gutters, sidewalk, and the planter strips. To perform this work, we need to underground all the existing overhead utilities within this section of the road. And according to the city utility undergrounding ordinance, all this work to be done in advance to the construction of the main project. We are working now with all utilities to get the design plans and entering into agreement with the Puget Sound Energy to perform this work. So this is mainly what I have for this item. Any question?
I don't have any questions. Do either of you have any questions at this point?
No questions for me.
Well, thank you very much. We will wait to see what happens on that.
Thank you.
And next, we have the asphalt overlay, the 2022 asphalt overlay program with Derek Hawks.
Yes, correct. Yeah,
Okay.
Good evening, Public Works Committee. Derek Hawks, I'm an engineering supervisor with the design section, and today have a presentation on the scope of work for our 2022 overlay program. This is information only. Typical overlay program consists of 4 components. There's the contracted overlay part that our group puts plans together for. There's the in-house part that operations actually goes and does some overlay work themselves on some of the smaller roads. And then there's some other work that is typically transportation, maybe traffic calming. We're not proposing anything like that this year, but we are proposing some bridge approaches, redoing some approaches to a couple bridges. And then we also go through a complete streets process, which maybe there's some sidewalk or some shoulder that Parks or ECD wants to try to incorporate into the project. So we'll go through the mayor's office on that and try to figure out if there's some additional improvements. We're already out here on these roads. You know, maybe there's some improvements we can make that help make it better for the community. So advance the slide. Lot on this map, but just a couple of highlights. This is our entire program that we're proposing for this coming year. Up at the very top, you can see the funding. $4.9 million is our total estimated project cost. $3.1 million comes from solid waste program. So these are the fees collected on for solid waste, for garbage, with the purpose of applying to doing residential streets, not necessarily our primary roadways. But then we are proposing $1.8 million from B&O, business occupancy tax, to help supplement that and do some of these other roadways. The priorities of how we came up with these locations is basically based on our operations has a pavement management software. So they kind of look at what the worst roads are, kind of their experience with the city and what needs to be done based on need. Also, the funding plays into that. So some of this is, again, more residential focus, so there may be some higher use roads that a typical B&O program would pay for, but not necessarily all happening in this program. Let's see, the contracted overlays, if you can see on the top here, there's a lot in this legend, but the contracted overlays are the blue dashed lines. Those are dig outs with a future chip seal. Solid waste, the solid blue is overlay, overlay or inlay. Magenta is a chip seal. And of course, we'll do curb ramps for all streets, including the in-house work or the contracted work, and maybe some miscellaneous sidewalk repairs and improvements. So yeah, anytime we disturb curb ramps or crosswalks, if the curb ramps don't meet ADA, we have to upgrade them to ADA standards. The in-house locations, which are on the top, these kind of colors, the green are just in-house overlays, purple dashed are dig outs, red and brown are dashed are grind and inlay. But basically, we're basically, no matter what, we're getting the road into a better place with either overlay or if there's pavement repairs that are necessary, and setting ourselves up for, in some cases, doing a chip seal in a future year. What I'm going to do now is kind of go through each of these locations. So if you have any questions, please jump in. So our contracted locations. So actually, let me go back. This is a picture 256 and 132nd. This is actually in our 2021 program. So the intersection is not done yet, but it will be done hopefully shortly once our contractor from last year gets around, the weather gets a little better, he can finish this intersection. So just wanted to show this to you because this came up in last year's presentation to council. It was a road that needed a lot of work, and just wanted to point that out.
Thank you.
The first section here is overlay, and I know this may be kind of hard to see, but 94th Avenue South and 248th Street, and 94th Avenue South from 240th to 242nd, and 248th Street from 96th Avenue to 102nd Place. So those are both just overlays. Again, this is contracted work.
Derek, if I could interrupt here.
Yeah.
The section on 94th, just south of James Street, that's a fairly developed section, so we don't see any likelihood of a new development in there. So we're going to go ahead and overlay it. And then the section on 248th, we actually had an emergency repair. And folks who drive through there often know that it's been about 3 weeks ago now. We had to close the road after the snow and ice. The road where you see the alligatoring, if you could point that out, the road looks like the back of an alligator on 248th. That came apart on us completely, and we ended up having to repave in a 2-block section between 100th and 98th. The section of the road, it just so happens we'll be going back there this summer to, we won't repave the section we just did, but the whole rest of that stretch between 94th and 104th will be completed.
Yep. Thank you, Chad. Okay, next slide. All these pictures kind of show what some of the worst case conditions are. On 112th, we're proposing an overlay from 240th to 232nd. And apologize for the different colors here. Some of these maps have the in-house work and the contracted work, but the blue, of course, that blue line on the left is 112th. Next street is 196 and 224th. So again, overlay is being proposed. 196 from 108th to the paving limits from the previous project, about 500 feet east. So that's that location. And then 124th on the lower end from 100 foot south of Kent Ridge High School driveway to southeast 104th Street. You can see both the pictures there with some pretty bad pavement. Same map, but on this one, we're proposing a chip seal on 124th from 204th Street to 192nd Street. So This is the only chip seal we have proposed for this year's project. We did one last year, actually, yeah, we did one last year on Lake Fenwick Road. Wanted to kind of test it out and see how that worked. So far, I think we're pretty happy with that. So I want to try one more this year. And next year, I think we're going to add about 3 streets at least to chip seal. So kind of go through some advantages of chip seal. Very cost-effective treatment, typically 20–25% of traditional overlay costs. Good durability, lasts another 5 to 7 years. Ease of construction, improved skid resistance. You can kind of read those. Effective moisture barrier by sealing small cracks in the pavement and protects asphalt surface from oxidation. Yeah, relatively cheap investment. It's, yeah, just trying to test it out and make sure that that's a program we want to continue in the city. Here are some pictures of Lake Fenwick Road. So basically, for those that maybe aren't familiar with chip seal, I mean, it's basically just laying a layer of liquid asphalt, putting some small rock in there, kind of rolling it through, making sure it sticks, kind of like an overnight cure, and then just sweeping whatever rocks remain. So obviously, it's a lot cheaper than putting down 2 inches of asphalt or digging up 2 inches and going back with 2 more inches. So definitely has its advantages. Typically, you want on less populated roads, so rural roads are kind of typically better, or less traveled roads, but yeah. There's a couple pictures of Lake Fenwick before and after.
So this is a surface treatment we'll be using more often as we find streets where it's effective. We can't use it on streets where the pavement's already failed because it really doesn't have any structural integrity. It's just a chip seal. It just seals up the road and provides, as Derek pointed out, several more years of life on the existing roadway as long as it hasn't failed already.
Yep, thank you, Chad. Yeah, the real trick is if it gets too bad, this is not a good application. The road needs to be bad enough to use it, but if it gets worse than that, then you're looking at a grind and overlay. So it's a fine balance of picking the right roads for this type of application.
Yes.
Yes.
So you just mentioned that it's mostly for like not heavily used roads. So are we planning on doing this in just the neighborhoods or just anywhere?
I'll field that.
Yep.
By not heavily used, we are going to try out a patch, we think, in the valley and see how it holds up to some truck traffic, where the road underneath has a good integrity to it, just as a wearing course to see how it'll work. We've talked with several jurisdictions around us, principally Auburn, where they use what they call a double chip. They go through 2 layers of it, and it's worked well for them on several of their heavily traveled streets. So we're going to give that a shot and see how it works out for us.
Yeah, and actually the next few slides are talking about some of the repairs that we're going to do this year in preparation of hopefully doing a chip seal next year. So this slide here is 148th Avenue, and this is from 249th to 244th Street. What we're doing is just pavement repairs along this section. So basically this road had some work, but if there's certain spots that you can repair instead of the whole road needing to be overlaid, you do the spot repairs, and then we'll do that this year, and next year follow up with a chip seal is our plan. So there's 3 streets I'm going to go over with you on these. The next street, similar situation, 144th Avenue, which turns into 260th. I'm sorry, it's 144th, which turns into 263rd, which turns into 148. So kind of just along Lake Meridian, that whole stretch. There's a park down there. We're going to where the boat launch ramp is. Again, just pavement repairs this year with a hopeful chip seal next year. And this road here is 268th. This one we're actually going to do an overlay. We're also going to add sidewalk on the south side. Half the road has sidewalk from Military to 40th. We're going to add sidewalk on the remaining 2 sections that don't have sidewalk. We're trying to figure out how to best deal with the driveways on that. And also we have a separate water project that's coming in from 40th Avenue going west along this stretch. So this is a project our operations team is doing. So we're trying to get them to get out there and do that work before we get out there with our overlay limits. So this will probably be one of the first ones that they do this summer. They're doing that in-house. And then the third street for future chip seal, this might be the one Chad's talking about, on 256, from about 20th place up to 132nd. So as you remember from the first slide in the presentation, 256 and 132nd, that intersection hopefully will be done in March, as soon as the weather kind of clears. And then we're going to go back basically all the way and do pavement repairs where necessary. And I think the plan next year is to do a chip seal maybe next year or a year after in this whole section. So this is the road you were talking about, Chad?
Yeah, this is one of the places where we're going to try that double chip method and see how it lasts. 256, this is a section we done in 2001, 2002 time frame. And and a lot of people say, well, why don't you do east of 132nd? And we will do sections through there as well. I know that the snowstorm really hit the section out east of 144. We're trying to keep up with that potholes, but we'll do that section as well for future years. Also shown on this map in red is the section that's going to be done with our in-house crews just north of 256 on 132nd. It's another area that was hit pretty hard after the snowstorm. There's several patches of 132nd after the snow really took shots. And so we pivoted part of the program with our in-house overlay crew, and they're going to do concentrate on the whole thing was no microphone. Cheryl, hit me next time I say that on microphone. So I'll start over for people. Sorry, Councilmember Larmer and everybody at home. So hopefully I bled through to somebody else's mic a little bit, and I'll say it shortly. 256, we'll do the section. 256 is, Derek pointed out, between 120th and 132nd. This is an area that's been, it's about 20-year-old pavement and needs to be rehabbed. And then on 132nd, there are several patches that got hit hard during this and after the storm, and our in-house overlays are going to take care of those patches up and down 132nd from both ends of the city limits.
And I'll show those in more detail, Chad, coming up. So, yeah, so that's it for the in-house locations. Other than what we do, again, just to remind everyone, we also design the curb ramps that are required, that are either deficient or new, and put those into the contract. So the contractor will be doing quite a few curb ramps in this project as well. Wanted to then move on to the in-house project locations. Again, these are going to be done by Public Works Operations. Same map, I just threw this up here for the scope, but I'll go through each of these individually. First section is Pioneer Street and 85th Place. So Pioneer from Central East is going to be a grind and inlay, and 85th Place north of 228th is a grind and inlay. That's on the left side. On the right side is 100th Avenue from 246 Place to 240th. That would be an overlay. And again, reminding you that we being design will also design the curb ramps, that our contractor for the overlay project will do the curb ramps prior to operations getting out there and doing the work, if all goes as planned. These slides here are 116th on the left place and 120th. So 116th from 244th Street. North of 244th Street is a grind and inlay, and 120th Avenue from 236 to 230th, it's half overlay and half grind and inlay. And just to make sure everyone knows, basically, if we're grinding inlays, you're grinding out 2 inches and putting asphalt back, and overlay, essentially, you're putting 2 inches of asphalt over top. So on the right side of the screen, 111th Avenue is overlay, and that's a short segment, and then 114th is from 516 to 264th Place. That's a grind and inlay. Next slide. On the left, 200th Street is a dig out and pavement repairs. So you can see that, yeah, that road's in pretty bad shape. And then on the right, 197th Place from 124th, west of 124th Avenue. So on this map, some of these maps you've seen before, but they're different contracted versus in-house work. So this one here is just that tiny little green street, if you can see that, west of 124th. Next street is 188th and 77th. It's 188th east of 64th Avenue and 77th Avenue near 196th Street to 206th Street. That's grind and inlay. And then on the right, 88th Avenue, south of 180th Street is dig out and pavement repairs only. So again, that's that little street right there. Next street, as Chad was mentioning, 132nd Avenue. There's 3 segments there that we're proposing that were kind of highlighted from the recent storm of needing some work. So this is a 264th Place to 270th, 252nd to 255th, and 234th Way to 236th Place. Again, operations doing this work. This is grind and inlay. Just a couple other slides here. We're almost there. This is just kind of a draft slide that we use to send out to all the residents that are along, or homeowners that are along the stretches of work roadway work that we're doing. And basically, it's kind of a public relations. Hey, we're doing work in your location. Also, we're basically repairing the road. So if you have all the utility work or driveway work, now is kind of a good time to do that. Just try to encourage them, so we don't want to come back a year later and dig up what we just did as they're putting in a sewer line or a water line or doing a driveway cut. So this will go out as part of the project. And I did mention in the beginning, there's some bridge maintenance repairs that we're proposing. So this is on 148th, Seuss Creek. That's 256 and 148th. So right at that intersection, Covington is off to the yellow line. Yellow line off to the right. So right up against the city limits of Covington, but this area floods a lot, and basically that intersection is in pretty bad shape. So we're going to do a 2-inch grind and overlay. And then just north of that at the bridge, we're going to do some work right there too, trying to define that scope. But both those will be included in the project. So that's a lot of different locations. Any questions that the council has?
I might add to that one fast, if I could jump in quickly, Derek. This is almost a bridge preservation project. Those bridges, as Derek pointed out, the approaches took a real hit again during the snow and ice. They're also, the approaches have been out there for quite a while and we're wearing down. And we need to make sure we make those nice smooth transitions so that those bridges last a long time. We get calls from many of our neighbors in Covington and Maple Valley when we have to close that road down due to flooding. The likely replacement of those bridges is years away. It's a very expensive project because of the location. We're going to be in wetlands and in a very low area, replacing those existing bridges, really culverts, with extensive structures and a lot of money. So it's something that we need to preserve what we have out there. We don't have the money to go and fix that now.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any questions from either of my two compadres?
I actually did have a question, but I think, Chad, you just addressed it. My question was going to be, given the propensity for flooding in those areas, whether we would consider where we have long-term plans for something like we did in front of Blue Origin, where we just bring the roadway up a little bit. But I think you answered it, that's perhaps in a future, but not financially viable for a while.
Yeah, that's correct. It's going to be years off.
Okay. But would that be the approach to do like what we did down in the valley where we raised the whole roadway in those areas?
Yeah, and it's going to be very similar to what we did at West Valley Highway about 17 or 18 years ago. We'll need to raise it straight up because the areas adjacent to the roadway are wetlands and or stream buffers. So it's going to be a very environmentally sensitive project. Mm-hmm. We're going to have to widen the bridges out enough that fish passage is taken into account, and then make sure we get the road up high enough that it won't flood all the time. So it's a combination habitat project and road raising project.
Sure. Thank you.
Okay, I had a couple of things. One, you had mentioned Lake Fenwick Road. So Councilmember Corr was asking about neighborhoods. I would say that that road gets more than the average street inside a neighborhood because it has the parks down there, both Lake Fenwick Park and also across the street they have the disc golf park. And so may not be ready for Central or for West or to get up the hill with chip seal yet, at least not yet. But we can get some pretty good use out of it. Would you please give a brief explanation? With the previous director, from time to time, we would hear what difference the weather made. You mentioned snow and ice a couple of times. So I know you used to do the what was it, Rice Krispie deal, but I don't know what your explanation is, but would you please explain why that makes a difference? And also, because we're going to be closing some roads for constructions and closing lanes, we have different weather events, all sorts of things happen. We have a really good way for people to keep up with what road closures are going to be taking place. Would you please also mention that during your explanation?
Yeah, if I could start there, let's go with Drive Kent first, drivekent.com, and you can sign up for alerts and you'll get them through your telephone or on your computer, but phone is the best way to get them. And we keep that Drive Kent site up to provide traffic alerts related to everything from weather to our own construction, private development construction, utilities, or anything else that's happening in the road that we're able to tell folks ahead of time. So drivekent.com and sign up. It's a great idea. So thanks for that reminder. And then Tim's explanation of the Rice Krispie treats, he liked to explain what was going on. It's a good explanation of how roads break down, which is if you allow them to crack and then take on water, and then you get a freeze-thaw cycle. Once the water freezes in that first couple of inches of asphalt, ice expands. It's bigger than the water itself, and once it expands, it's very powerful, and it'll start to break up the asphalt. And when you add a load to that, wheel loads from cars or trucks, they'll start to really break the asphalt. And it's strange because you think of asphalt as being tough because it's out there for years getting pounded by everything, and it is, but water's tougher. And so that's why we have our crack seal program. Council just authorized Tuesday night to go out and seal the cracks. That's just to keep the water out of that top few inches of asphalt and extend the life of the pavement. Once you start to see extensive cracking, as Derek pointed out earlier, you're going to need to go in and do a grind and overlay and replacement. But if you can get the cracks sealed up, either with an overlay or with crack sealing, you can really extend the life of a pavement.
Thank you. And that's, heavy trucks, buses, whether it's school bus, public buses, trash, recycle trucks, all sorts of things really take a toll on our roads. So
a stat I think we've used quite often, and it always still is shocking to me. It varies depending on the wheel load, but a loaded truck will be anywhere between 4,500 and 7,500 motor or passenger cars. The effect of one truck going overloaded like that is the wear and tear on the road is pretty extensive.
So thank you to the residents when they're paying their garbage bills, and to the B&O that we receive, the B&O tax that we receive from the businesses. More of this work is going to be done. So thank you very much.
Thank you, appreciate it.
And now we have Rob Brown coming up to give us information on the Psrc transportation grants.
Good afternoon, committee.
Good afternoon.
Rob Brown, Public Works Transportation Engineering Manager. This afternoon, I'm here to talk to you about our first grant opportunity of 2022, the first of many. As we discussed a couple weeks ago in the workshop, we have upwards of 13 or 14 grant opportunities, so you'll be seeing a lot of us this next few months. So the first one is the Puget Sound Regional Council Regional Competition. And this is a grant that is that focuses on the regional growth centers and manufacturing centers and the corridors that serve those centers. These are federal funds that come from the Federal Highway Administration or the Federal Transit Authority, and they also have those federal requirements that go along with those. So there's some additional reporting, additional record keeping, prevailing wages, those things that come with federal funding. The grants we're applying for now, we're applying in 2022. Decision for which projects will be awarded funds will be made sometime this year, but the funds will actually be awarded in 2025, with the funds being available for our use in 2026. And these projects come with a minimum of a 13.5% local match, so we good return on our investment. And then again, this is a regional competition, and there are specific numbers of projects that are awarded to regional areas.
Rob, I have a clarification on that slide, just so we're clear. The third item, I think we have a little bit of a misprint in there. The grant applications are due this year. They will be awarded. They would be awarded by the Transportation Policy Board or the full board of PSRC in July, and the funding would be available to be spent in fiscal year 25 or 26, depending on what year you say the project can be constructed. So just for clarity, we would know late summer if we were given the award or not.
Great, thank you for the clarification. So just a quick refresher, this next slide shows our manufacturing and industrial center. It's in the gray upper portion of the valley. And then our regional growth center is the downtown area shown in the yellow, kind of bounded where it just happened to line up with the city name on the map. So again, the projects need to be in one of these two areas or in the streets that serve those areas. And then these also need to be federally functionally classified streets. So our larger streets are arterial streets. And this is just a map of our arterial network. So, skip that one. These are the candidate projects that staff has identified for the regional competition this year. We have the Meeker Street 64th intersection and the Kent Elementary frontage. There. We have the Meeker Street, Kent Elementary to Washington Avenue, and that's the next phase of Meeker to the east right there. 216th, 90th to 108th. This is the next phase of the 224th corridor. This is the next phase after the phase that Abdulnaser just mentioned in his presentation earlier this afternoon. And then the Meeker Street Lincoln intersection roundabout. And then the next project after that is the Meeker Street Lincoln Avenue to the Union Pacific Railroad, which is just on the east side of the interurban trail. So after reviewing the project criteria and the different projects that we feel are eligible candidates, staff recommends that we apply for the Meet Me on Meeker Lincoln Avenue to the interurban trail project. Now, this continues the Meeker improvements, Meet Me on Meeker improvements, and it is compatible with the Meeker Lincoln Smith Street road diet. That's the project that changes the road from 4 lanes to 3 lanes plus bike lanes that we talked about earlier this summer with Eric Preston, the city traffic engineer. That was a grant that we won from the state for pedestrian and bicycle safety. This also rebuilds and improves the interurban trail crossing, which has an immediate benefit for the trail users, and is compatible with the Naden property redevelopment and the new Naden Avenue extension that's coming hopefully in the near future. So in this picture you're looking at here, this is the east side of the interurban trail looking to the west, and you can see the SR 167 bridge there in the far distance in the picture. So with that, I would ask for the committee's input and approval.
Councilmember Larimer, any questions?
Oh, yeah.
Comments?
So I just had a question. It's not, not about this Meeker Street, because I think that's a great project. But just going back a slide to the areas that qualified, the gray and the yellow areas that were qualified for the grant. I was curious that I didn't see any of the area on West Hill around the new transit centers coming. Is that once those are in, will that be part of the gold? Will that become growth areas? I'm just more curious than anything.
So let's go back to the. So these are the two, this is the manufacturing industrial center and the regional growth area. These are defined by the Puget Sound Regional Council. There's an application and approval process. But basically, the only streets that would qualify for this grant are either in the gray or yellow shaded areas or the arterial streets that serve those areas, so connect to those. So unfortunately, the area around the transit center up in Midway currently doesn't qualify.
Okay, thank you.
Interestingly enough, we're one of the few cities around of our size that has a manufacturing and industrial center, a MIC, and a regional growth center, particularly right next to each other. So whereas we would love to have those areas expanded, which would make us, eligible for more grants, every city in the greater Puget Sound wants these areas, and we just happen to have two. So great question, and we've actually worked to expand these where it makes sense as the manufacturing industrial center in particular has grown. There are some county designated growth centers that planning, economic and community development worked on with transportation engineering and transportation planning to provide those some suggested areas that would be up on the east and west hills, and those are going through a separate process and would be available for lower level funding, but it is something we consider and try and work toward constantly.
Thank you. Is that it, Councilmember Larimer?
Yes, that's it. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
All right. I think.
Yeah, really what we want to do is as we've talked about in past presentations, this is part of no surprises. When we go and apply for the grant funds, we want to make sure that if we're awarded the funds, we come back to council, and council's already aware of where we're applying for the funds and why, and everybody's on board. Because if we're able to score, we don't want any surprises going back the other way, which is if council said, we don't really want to spend the money there, we're telling the region, basically, we weren't talking with each other. And so this is just our way of saying, this is where we think the money or the grant application would be appropriate, and then getting feedback from council is important that, yep, we're in agreement, and we'll move forward and put the packet together. A lot of time goes into putting these grant applications together.
Yes. Okay, then, if there is nothing else.
No, ma'am.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And that is the last item on our agenda. The meeting is adjourned.